sometimes putting more hours or more people at a particular task doesn't make it more productive, doesn't make it go any faster. Warren Buffett famously said, you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. There's a debate going on online on how many hours is the right amount of hours to work a week. Some entrepreneurs will tell you all you need is a 4-hour work week, while other folks are saying that you should always be hustling.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling.
Now, I personally think that either extreme is a little bit outlandish. At the end of the day, it's actually not really about the hours. You can have an incredibly productive day where you kind of get in, get focused, do what you need to do. And you can also have a full entire day where you kind of come in early, stay late, but at the end of the day, you don't really feel like you've accomplished that much. There's this concept that I really believe in and really like called ROWE, and ROWE stands for Results Only Work Environment. And the idea behind ROWE is that rather than measuring the hours and the effort, you really put a focus on the results, the things that you actually want. And when you know what results you want to achieve, it's much more productive in terms of how you spend your time. Not every hour is equivalent, and you could spend crazy amount of hours working and not really making headway and progress toward whatever the results that you're actually trying to drive. And on the flip side, you could have an epiphany, a great idea, something that is incredibly simple, and you kind of spend an hour and it can have outsized impacts and outside results on what you're actually trying to achieve. So rather than focusing on, is it a 40-hour work week, is it a 4-hour work week, is it a 130-hour work week, really try to understand what results you're trying to drive in any particular span of time, whether it's, I have a day, or I have a couple of hours, or I have an entire week or a month. What results are you really trying to drive? And when you know what results you're trying to drive, then you can really have an impact, and then it's less about the hours and more about the results. So when you're starting a business, there are always more things that you can do, and there's kind of a growing infinite list of things that you can accomplish, things you can get done, and one of the easy ways you think that you can be more productive and check off more things on your list is just to work more. You don't need to hire anyone else. You don't need to spend additional money. You just kind of grind the hours. And especially when you're starting a business, that can be effective. But long term, it's really a losing strategy. You can only do that for small bursts of time. And anyone who's starting a business really needs to appreciate that it's really a marathon. It's not a sprint. You can't kind of come at it and spend, 80, 100 plus hours a week for any sustained period of time, nor should you expect your employees or your team to be able to do that. So as you increase the number of hours that you work, the value that you get from each additional hour starts to decrease. It's really hard to pile more and more hours onto a particular task. You start getting very incremental gains from whatever it is that you're doing. You can continue to improve that thing, but you start to get diminishing returns. Whereas if you really think about the things that you are doing, rather than how much time you are spending on them, you can identify new interesting tasks, new interesting opportunities for you to have an outsized impact. So you can really make a larger difference. And in fact, oftentimes when you take a step away from your work, you've always had that experience where you take a step away, maybe you're walking around, you're in the shower, you're doing something completely separate from your work, and your brain makes that connection, makes that inspiration, and gives you the aha that you really needed. So sometimes taking a step away from the work is just as valuable. And this is really one of the insights around time and 40-hour work weeks as well, even when you're not working, your brain is still background processing and thinking about those problems and trying to solve those things for you. So even when you're not at your desk checking your email, typing on a computer, your brain is thinking of ways to solve the problems. So you need to give it space to do that as well, whether it's going out for a walk, taking a step back from the computer. So regardless of how many quote unquote work hours you have, you're constantly thinking about the problems that you're giving to your brain. And so whether it's in your commute or on your train, that brain time is valuable time regardless of how you spend it or where you spend it. The other thing is not all hours are the same. There are certain types of work where additional hours actually directly contribute to additional output. If you're working at a factory and you can make 100 widgets in an hour, and you can really kind of multiply it out and say like, hey, if we run the factory 24/7, how many things will we produce? That's just math. But people aren't factories, and our brain isn't a factory, and so you can't produce more imagination, more art, more creativity by just pumping more hours at it. It doesn't really work that way. For certain manufactured goods, you can get those additional results. So when Elon Musk sleeps at the factory to keep his factory running 24/7, that's very different than Marissa Mayer of Yahoo working 130 hours a week trying to get software engineers to be more productive. They're not identical hours. I would say that both extremes are not healthy, definitely not sustainable. Entrepreneurs and especially leaders who are showing their team what is expected of them should be kind of creating that environment that's really oriented around the results, oriented around the long-term marathon that is building a business, as opposed to short bursts of sprints. It's just more sustainable, a better way to build amazing companies and products.
Lastly, I wanted to give a shout out to my daughter Emily, who had half an idea to model out an iPhone holder for downward-facing shots on the computer. So she sketched it out. We modeled it in 3D and printed it out on a 3D printer, and those are the shots you saw in this video. If you like this video and this type of content, please leave a comment. Thanks so much.